You hit play, and here we are at the Journey Jukebox, a Big Blend radio travel podcast featuring Lisa Evans, a travel writer, photographer, travel advisor, and the author of 100 Things to Do in Coastal Mississippi Before You Die. Welcome, everyone. Today, Lisa is taking us to Memphis. And, the Journey Jukebox, music is always a big part of this show. And Lisa has her own music playlist on Spotify. So, we're going to be loading up some new tunes on the list. But Memphis is a landmark when you think about music of America, really. There's so many different sounds that came out of there. And then there's the recording studios and there's really good food. And I think she had a really good time. So how are you doing, Lisa? You had a good time in Memphis. And I've got a link to one of our articles about Memphis as well. And that is listed in the episode notes. So you want to check that out. It's up on foodieflashpacker.com. And it's all about 7 must-try Memphis restaurants. So I think we're talking food and music today. This is not a bad thing in life.
Yeah, Memphis is a really cool city. I really enjoyed it. And as you said, food, they had some really great food, really cool restaurants. And then, of course, the music. You can't beat the music in Memphis. You just can't.
Yeah, the music, years ago, we interviewed one of the gentlemen from the Box Tops.
Nice.
Yeah, that's a big deal. They wrote the letter, and then I actually interviewed their manager who's based out of St. Augustine, Florida. Mm-hmm. So that was cool. And he's a musician too. So nice. When you think about Memphis in the music, you got like Elvis Presley and things like that. But then you have that R&B kind of soul style of music that came out of there too.
And of course, one of the first things, and this was suggested to me when I went there by the local tourism board, is that I went on a bus tour, it was called Backbeat Tours. And it pretty much gave you a highlight of the different things in Memphis. Because realistically, there's so much in Memphis, and unless you can spend weeks at a time exploring. So the Backbeat Tours actually really gave a nice overview. And, of course, in every city, in every tourist city, there is a lot of bus tours and city tours that you can take. And this one was recommended, and I really enjoyed it because the tour guides were I don't know if I would call them amateur musicians or wannabe musicians or whatever. And the guy we had he was so engaging, and they'll sing, and he'll throw in one of his songs, and then he'll do a cover of somebody else. And, as you're going along the tour, he tells you they are tour guides, but they're singing tour guides. It was really interesting and very engaging. Anybody, I definitely would recommend Backbeat Tours. I had a great time. It was I bet it was an hour and a half, 2-hour city tour, and it took you all over the city in the different sections. But like I said, the tour guide / musician / starving artist, whatever you want to call him, he was really engaging. So that was, and it also gave you a nice little overview. That was one of the first things I did when I got in the city, and it gave a nice little overview. Of course, Beale Street, anybody that's heard of Memphis has heard of Beale Street. And it was a lot of fun. It was very interesting to me because the hotel I stayed at was actually, and we'll get back to that, but it was I didn't stay at the Peabody, but it was a Canopy hotel. I think it's under the Marriott brand. And it's literally across from the Peabody. So obviously with the Peabody, you have to go see the ducks, which I did. Mm-hmm. From the hotel where I was staying at. The walk to Beale Street was maybe 10 minutes, and it was, a nice walk. And one thing that struck me really interesting was the amount of police presence. Of course, it's a tourist city, and, you don't always hear complimentary things about Memphis, some of the areas in the city, just like any city. But on Beale Street, there was a really good law enforcement presence. So I never once felt unsafe or anything of that nature. And I was on Beale Street, different times of the day, in the evenings, early evening, dinner hour, that type of thing. So, and it's an experience. Let me think, what do I want to say? It's just like an aura of music and, different places where I went. And I went to, I went to BB King's, BB King's place, which that was well worth it. But of course, all up and down Beale Street, kind of like, I guess it's kind of like if you've been to New Orleans on Bourbon Street, with the jazz musicians everywhere. Beale Street was kind of the same thing, only on the blues side of it. So, you could be walking up and you'll hear live blues music from a variety of places on Beale Street. And it's just the atmosphere was just so everything musical. It was, you heard everything and you saw people from every walk of life. It was very much an eclectic mixture. It was really fun and it was a really good experience. I would definitely highly recommend. Obviously, if you're going to Memphis, you got to go to Beale Street. That's a given.
That is history, man. It is just such
Yes.
oh man, magic. We haven't done much in Memphis. We've done a lot of shows on Memphis and we drive across there all the time. That big bridge between Arkansas and Tennessee. And what I love about it is that it is connected to Nashville. There's like a music corridor of Tennessee that goes on from the interstate, which is super cool for people to follow, right? And get into that. Because it is kind of interesting how Nashville and Memphis are not that far away, but it's two separate sounds. Well, actually multiple sounds, right?
And it's different. It's definitely a different atmosphere because I did, exactly the same thing. I spent some days in Memphis and then I went up to Nashville, which we'll get into at another show. But the vibe, I guess is the phrase. The vibe of Memphis is so different. You wouldn't think it would be, but it's such a difference in the vibe of the city between Memphis and Nashville. Both great cities, but definitely a different feel to both of them. And actually, you mentioned the river. Of course, one of the photo ops and one of the things that I did was go to Big River Crossing, which is obviously that big bridge. And, you have to walk out about halfway and there's a little sign that basically you could have 1 foot in Tennessee and 1 foot in Arkansas. And, but it's just great views of the river. So that was another fun thing I did. That's obviously you walk, and, as long as you're not afraid of heights or any of that type
I know.
of
I
thing.
kind of do give myself that little cross before we go over that big bridge because I'm a baby. But I've done all the worst mountain passes, highest ones in this country. And I've done some of the craziest thing for someone who is not good at mountain passes or bridges. I've done them. And I just you have to put music in. Bob Marley usually helps me.
Oh, of
calm
course.
down. Yeah, he's the Bob,
There you go.
Yeah, he is. He's the, you got me all, you told me you're going to the Bahamas again. So now I'm thinking Jamaica and I went to the Jamaican side of my brain, but I'm feeling all kind of tropical, even though we're talking about Memphis. But here's the thing, talk about Memphis. Aren't a lot of their restaurants and bars like rooftop experiences when you talk about heights? People enjoy the rooftop bars out there. I think
there probably are. I'll be honest. I didn't experience any of those. I really actually went to ones that are well known. One was a great barbecue place that was called the Rendezvous, and it was very close to my hotel, and you have to go down. It was just different. You have to go down an alleyway to get to this restaurant, and this place was hopping, and the food was excellent. But if you didn't know it was there, most of its advertisement is by reputation. And as you're going down the alleyways, and one of the things that I had on my notes to talk about is the street art. The street art on the walls in Memphis is very interesting. They've got murals everywhere. It's the artistry, and it's various artists. And one of the things I'll get to is the Civil Rights Museum. The murals along that area are just, they're just exceptional. And so the little alleyway going to this barbecue restaurant, this barbecue joint was covered in street art. And there's another place, and again, I can't exactly remember where it was, but there's this beautiful mural that says "I love Memphis," and then it's got a guitar and Beale Street. It's very creative with the street art and the murals. I thought that was quite interesting.
See, this is fun.
Yeah. And so that was a great restaurant. Another one, and of course, you can't go to Memphis without going to the Arcade Restaurant. It's like a diner, and it's literally Memphis's oldest cafe, and it's on the National Register of Historic Places. But the food was exceptional. Most people will go to it just because, I got to go to the oldest cafe in Memphis. But we went there for breakfast one morning, and man, what a breakfast. And the food and it's your typical It's your typical diner. What you would envision, it's your typical diner. And of course, they have photos all along their walls of all the, BB King, Elvis, because it was one of Elvis's hangouts when he was in Memphis, and just, other different celebrities. And so everybody goes to the arcade for the fact to say they went there. And so, of course, they have all these pictures of the celebrities that have been there. But very down to earth and, not snooty. The food was very good. So, that's another one. The arcade, definitely I would go to. Like I said, went there for breakfast. I believe, it's your typical diner. You can get lunch and dinner and that too. But I personally went for breakfast, and it was a very hearty breakfast. You didn't.
I don't think you can leave anywhere hungry in Memphis. When I'm looking at this, the restaurants that you went to, barbecue, you got barbecue there, right?
Of course. At the Rendezvous, I think it's the Rendezvous and then another time was breakfast was a Sunrise Memphis. And again,
oh yeah,
just a little nice little place. But I discovered, I actually kind of like backtracked and I make it myself. They call it a yogi bowl, and it's yogurt like vanilla or just plain yogurt, and with the fresh berries mixed in, strawberries and blueberries and blackberries. Oh my God, it was so good. Of course, it's good for you. Before you eat the bacon and eggs, but they call it the yogi bowl, and it was so fresh, and it was that was very good.
So but I love breakfast places like that. You talk about in your article and I went to Roots Cafe in Little Rock, where your coffee is an actual coffee cup that isn't all the same in the restaurant. It's like going to your friend's house and everything's mismatched, and it's like artful and fun, So it seems like it was those kind of places where everyone's got a different plate. I love places like that. And sounds like it was kind of one of those fun, colorful kind of places to be.
Yes, it was very bright and colorful. So that was well worth it. Yeah, the food, we went to an outdoor place for lunch. It was it depends upon what area you're in. And whatever you want, you can pretty much find whatever you want, which that was very, very good. And then of course, you got to do the touristy things. If you're talking attractions and touristy things, I mentioned the Peabody Hotel, and I'm sure everybody is familiar with the Peabody, the duck walk, the ducks of the Peabody. And I have on video, which of course I didn't send you, I can at some point, and you would be absolutely amazed at the number of people, and whether or not you're staying in the Peabody does not matter. Twice a day, that place is packed for the walk of the ducks, to and from their room, as you call it. They're in tuxes and tails. It's just an experience. The Peabody Ducks. And if you haven't been, or you don't have any idea what if you literally Google Peabody Ducks, you'll get the whole scenario. And it was an experience, and I couldn't believe how many people were there. I think I took the elevator up because it happens in the open courtyard. I want to say the only way I could see it was by going up to like the second floor and looking down, because people start lining up, and there's just nowhere to stand to see this. And the ducks walk on the red carpet. It's quite interesting. And, they tell you the whole story about how it started. It's again, just one of those things in Memphis that pretty much it's one of those tourist things. So
yeah, but it's fun. But the other thing is the history. I mean, Memphis,
yes.
The Lorraine Motel, that is Sun Record Studios, Stax Records, all of that. Yep. And for music lovers, again, this is like and it's got a growing hip hop scene too that's really kicking some butt out of Memphis. But the Lorraine Motel, I love the picture you have too of it, because they're just those cars, man, we just don't have cars like, our cars are so boring now compared to cars back then. I call, we love these kinds of cars. We call them pimpmobiles, but anyway. We're not
pimpmobiles, exactly.
They are pimpmobiles. But that one with the green on it is really cool. But talking about the Lorraine Motel, this is some serious history that went down there.
It was, I'll tell you what, and I remember walking through this museum, and of course, everybody knows the general, what happened and how it happened and whatever. But when you're actually there, And you know, when you go to the Lorraine Motel, you can go, they obviously have the room where Dr. King was, and it's basically, it's like stopped, you know, it's like frozen in time. And it's very chilling to walk through there and to walk through the Civil Rights Museum. Every person in this country, in my opinion, needs to get their butt to Memphis and walk through that Civil Rights Museum, because it is very moving. And you know, you learn things that you sit there and go, how did this happen? It was just, it's very, if you're into history, which you know, you and I both know I am, but that museum to me was just, it was amazing. And I truly think everybody should go to that museum and walk through and read and look and just, you know, submerge themselves into, and it was a sad time. I mean, if you stop and think about that time in this country, you know, it's not necessarily something that we should be proud of, but how they handled it and how Dr. King and his connections, it's just very, very moving. And then again, of course, it's right, you know, where the Lorraine Motel is, and you take the, you know, you walk up and you see this room, and then you like transport yourself back to that time, and it's bone chilling. I mean, it gave me the shivers. It really did. It was very, very moving to me.
I really want to soak that history up, because I think it's timely too. I mean, our world is a little wonky, and it's just kind of a stark reminder of what can happen.
Correct.
Today. And that's why it's so important to go to these historical sites. And it does, you feel it. You know,
yes.
It's like, you know, going to Birmingham, Alabama, that same history. It's all connected. Yep. And we've been part of, well, you're in Mississippi, so you know exactly what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And it's actually kind of sad if you stop and think about it, how relevant it still is. It just, you know, with some of the things that are going on currently and that have gone on, it's like history repeating itself. It's like, it's really kind of scary. But that was definitely, and you know, I mean, in my opinion, if you're going to Memphis, you have to, obviously Beale Street, that's the fun one. But the, you know, I don't know how you'd say it, but you have to go to the Civil Rights Museum. I can't even, there's just certain things when you're in a city you have to go see, and in my opinion, that's one of them. You know, and then of course, back on the whole music side of it, you know, there's some must-sees when you're in Memphis. We talked a little bit about it, is Sun Records. And Sun Records and again, frozen in time. You know, you can get a photo op with using the same microphone that Elvis and all the others used. And you see The Office and all those pictures. It's just, you know, so Sun Records, Stax Records, another one. You know, you kind of got to go to both of them, and you get both, you know, you get both views of the whole music thing. And then, of course, you know, Memphis, the Holy Grail, at least in my opinion. I know not everybody's a big Elvis fan, but to me, Graceland, I mean, I literally wanted to go to Graceland my entire life. And I finally made it there, and it was well worth the wait. I mean, I know, you know, some people like him, some people don't, although, you know, his influence is, you know, unquestionable on music from the day he started forward. But Elvis's presence in Memphis, I mean, that's, you know,
Elvis is huge. You know, he really is. And I think what people forget, and where the who likes him or doesn't kind of thing, is that people started calling him, like, he brought out rock and roll. And that's not true. Chuck Berry did. You know, and then when you think about blues and everything, it's he introduced it to us, white people. Let's just put it that way. Am I saying this correctly? I don't know.
Yeah, no.
Correctly, but this is the truth. He introduced it to us. He went and listened to what was going on in the juke joints and things like that. He went and listened, and he fell in love with it and brought it. He did not create the sound, but he did have his own sound. Elvis, right? He did gospel. He did. I mean, that voice is incredible. And then he, you know, brought movements out that shocked every parent across the country, which is, I think, the most important thing that rock and roll ever did, was get people out of their little, you know, boxes. And we can be naughty. Heck yeah, because they were doing it. That silent generation did have naughty moments, and they just kept quiet about it. And this opened up a whole other level of, oh, who cares about being silent? We're going to show it and tell it and
Yeah.
sing it and party. Does that make sense? Just
Yeah.
saying.
And again, his influence is like, I mean, and and like I said, he was kind of my older siblings generation, so to speak. But because of my older siblings, I listened to Elvis since the time I was probably 4 years old. So, I can tell you exactly where I was, what I was doing in 1977 on August 16th when the news broke that he died. I will never, ever, ever forget that moment. It was just so, and I was a teenager, but at the same time, it was just so incredibly sad of how his life ended. And then, of course, as you get older, you learn the history and you learn everything. But Graceland itself, how he bought it, why he bought it for his mother, and what it was. And the tour of Graceland is, again, frozen in time. I mean, I remember walking through that Graceland, and I was on with the tourism board, so I got the whole backstage, I got the deeper tour, I guess we'll
You
call
go,
it.
girl.
And it was just amazing. Like when you walk through I remember my parents' kitchen in the 1970s when I walked through Graceland. And when you look at it now, it's like, this is a mansion. Well, you got to think back in the 70s, it was a mansion. Now it's a house. Now it's just a regular old house. I say that, but it's not. It's got all the different kinds of he's, all different, like his gym and his sound room and the jungle room. But the kitchen, when you walk through the kitchen, you see that goldenrod, that yellow color. And it literally is like stuck in the 70s, the shag carpet, the decorations. When you walk into he had his own little private the upper level of Graceland is not for tour. That's where his bedroom was, and that was the family area. So that, of course, you can't go see no matter who you are.
That's fantastic. Yeah, but I think that is fine. That is good that they keep some privacy. Honestly,
they do. Unless you're Riley Keough, you don't go upstairs. You can see the staircase and everything, all the pictures, as it's literally looks just like it did. The peacocks, it's just, everything is just so Elvis and so 70s. You go into his music room, his newsroom. There's literally 4 of the ancient old TVs, like we're back in the 70s where he used to watch the news. And it's a great tour. Again, highly recommend. And of course you can go through the mansion, and then you go through the museums with all the clothing and all the other stuff. And you can go through the Lisa Marie, which is obviously the airplane, which I did all of that. One thing about Graceland that literally just dropped me, that's the one time, is the meditation garden. And obviously that's where he is buried, where his parents are buried, and now where Lisa and her son and his grandma, it's a beautiful setting. And there's a pool, the pool kind of overlooks the meditation, not overlooks, but is near the meditation garden. But the pool, back in the 70s was probably considered something big and grand. Now it's just a swimming pool. But again, you have to remember, you have to go back to the 70s of when he lived there. And the meditation garden, literally, I mean, that made me cry. Everybody is so reverent when they're walking through there. Everybody talks in hushed tones, and you don't even have to tell anybody. It's like a given. People are, and it's very, very moving. The meditation garden is very moving, I will say. And I would, just the lawns and you can see where his stables were. It was very, very well, it was well worth the tour. And I think I spent probably most of the day going through between the mansion and the grounds and the airplane and the other museums where all the memorabilia is. And it's definitely, I mean, and it's not inexpensive. I'm not going to say that it is, but in my opinion, it's definitely well worth it.
It's a bucket list thing. It is. It's a bucket list thing. And it's on my list. Did they show anything? Because, his music history is really quite fascinating, because it did start when he was young. And it also, when he was in the military, he went to different places. Like, he was a driver, as I recall. And I remember being in a town in Texas. Oh boy. And it just, went out the name of the town, Gladewater. And Johnny Cash also went through there. And Elvis went through there, and he was driving a truck at that time. And I don't know if he was driving for the military or not, but he would stop by the Opry there. They had a tiny little Opry. Louisiana high rides went through there, so it's close to Louisiana too. And he went out. He was driving, and he was actually in the military during the time that he went there. So I don't know if he was driving for money or driving for the military but anyway, it was around his military time. And he hadn't become famous yet at that point. I'm getting myself all twirled around, but he did have history doing some kind of driving. But did they show any of his military history and some of the, what he did do beyond the music before? Because I think he was singing while he was in the military.
Yes, he was. And that's actually why he ended up going in the military, is because he was, during the time he was considered the bad boy because, he, did what he wanted to do, the gospel and the R&B and the black music and all this and that. And, that wasn't really accepted of him. So he ended up getting himself in trouble. And I believe why he ended up going into the military is because he was kind of given a choice of, we need to clean up your image because, we want you to be Mr. Clean, whatever. And so he ended up enlisting. And so not in the mansion, of course, but in the other museum buildings, there's a whole section on his military years and the memorabilia, like they have his uniform and all different things pertaining to the military and where he was stationed and what he did. So those are kind of in the museum buildings. And in the museum buildings, there's different exhibits, some are permanent and I think some are moving exhibits, or visiting exhibits, I think is the term. But there's a section on his military. There's a section on, and this, when I went, was prior to Lisa Marie's passing, but there was a section in that had all of her, I won't say all, a lot of her things of her when she was a child there, like her go-kart and different things, and some of her clothing, as she got famous in her own right. And then there's another, I think this was a traveling exhibit that I saw, but it was other musicians and some of their memorabilia, and then like statements or whatever of how Elvis influenced them. And there was some really cool, like there was a big Kiss display when I was there, and you read the different stories of the members of Kiss and how they felt that Elvis influenced them. And it was just a lot of different things. Those are what I call the museum buildings, and those are the exhibits. And yes, there is a big military, like a big area that's dedicated to his military. There's another area that's dedicated to his cars and his motorcycles and all. He was one for the Need for Speed kind of thing, and it shows some of his car collection and his motorcycle collection. So there's a lot more than just the mansion tour when you go to the Graceland compound, I guess is a good word for it. But it's, there's just a lot to take in. And you could tell going through that there were some people kind of like me who are very, very into Elvis. And then there were others that were just being dragged along kind of thing. And, but it's very interesting. And I think once you go there and experience it, you realize how much influence he actually did have. And it's actually quite amazing when you stop and think, of his reach, not
Global.
Just to the rock and roll, all the local things that he did, how he helped the city of Memphis, the money he donated and what he would do for the area itself. So, it was pretty interesting. I mean, obviously, that to me, I was well pleased with the Graceland. And then of course, going back down to downtown Memphis, if you know anything about his history, there was Lansky Brothers, and not just him, but like BB King. And that was the they all went to for their clothing. So it was Elvis, it was BB King, it was all the blues musicians there. So that was kind of cool going to Lansky Brothers. That's their claim to fame, Elvis and BB King shopped here kind of thing. So that was pretty cool.
I have a musician that was on a show. I think he wrote a song about it. We talked about it. I mean, this was maybe 10 years ago. I don't know. Ryan David Orr. He wrote a song about the Lanskys and going there, and he was talking about, I could be wrong, of course, but he was talking about that because he spent a lot of time in Memphis, And gosh, I'm thinking about all the movies made in Memphis. I mean, the pop culture of Memphis is huge, Yeah, I got songs to add to that, and you got BB King on your list. That's cool.
Of course.
You
Okay.
went to the birthplace in Tupelo.
Did. I also
Yeah.
went to the and again, this is it kind of ties into the whole Mississippi Blues Trail, because while yes, the Mississippi Blues Trail is mostly markers within the state of Mississippi, there are some that are outside. Memphis being one, of course, and mostly because of, obviously the blues influence of Beale Street and Memphis and BB King and the whole bit. So that is one of the places on the Blues Trail. And of course, Tupelo is on the Blues Trail as well because of being the birthplace. And honestly, Tupelo I was there for a conference for my work, and I was there, and I was like, we had some free time. I was like, well, you know what? I'm here. I'm going to go to the birthplace. And and I had gone to Tupelo after I had gone to Graceland. So it was interesting to see how humble and I mean, after the grandiose of Graceland and the airplane and everything, which is obviously after, he made his mark, kind of whatever, to go back to Tupelo and go to the birthplace was very, I mean, you literally, it's a shotgun house. It is maybe a two room house with a outhouse kind of thing where he was born and where he lived with his parents. And of course, his twin brother died at birth. So it was just Elvis. And they lived in this shotgun house. And while it's not obviously the exact furniture or whatever, it's replica furniture from when they lived there. And of course, the city of Tupelo, being that he was built there or born there, they've, tagged on, they've made this whole, the birthplace park, they call it. And so they have the chapel where he and his parents worshiped in this park. Obviously, I'm thinking that was moved a few blocks, but so there's a chapel, and then there's a, so it's a shotgun house. And if you don't know what a shotgun house, it's a straight shot from front to the back. Like you walk in the front door and you're probably in a living room, and then maybe a bedroom, and then maybe a kitchen, and then you go out the back door. It's one straight
It's like
shot.
a galley kitchen, but a house.
Yes, exactly. And obviously it was made for the South, in the South. And again, I live here, so I get it now. But because of the way that the breezes flow, and thinking back, not everybody is able or was ever able, and before air conditioning. So the only way you could get like a breeze is with the shotgun house. You open the front door, open the back door, and the breeze goes through. And that's pretty much why they call it a shotgun house. But there's a lot of art. There's a lot of artifacts in Tupelo Park, in the birthplace park. So it's just, again, it's not anything you can walk through the birthplace in an hour and a half, probably less than, if you aren't like me and want to read everything. It's not a really big thing. But again, if you're in Tupelo, it's worth the visit. The other little thing, and this is when he was a kid, there was this drive-in. And again, it's nothing to write home about, but you would be absolutely amazed at the number of people in there. It's called Johnny's Drive-In, and it is your typical drive-in. I mean, your typical,
I love drive-ins.
That's what it is. And so they have an Elvis booth, of course, because he was a staple there when he lived in around Tupelo. He would always go to this, and he would get there's a burger. And again, think of people that didn't have a whole lot of money, and I guess they call it the dough burger or poor man's burger. It's basically a hamburger, but with a whole lot of like flour and stuff in it to obviously bring the cost down. So you can get plenty of other food, and it's really good. But of course, I had to, because I had to try this. I don't know what they call it. They might call it Elvis's burger. I can't even remember. But it's, in my opinion, it's not the best, but it's an experience, because if you put yourself back into that time period and realize that not everybody could afford, even though back then probably a regular burger might have only cost you $1, maybe. Somebody in the situation that Elvis was in his childhood couldn't even afford that. Mm-hmm. So that's why they came up with this dough burger, and it was probably back then maybe at 5 cents or a dime, maybe a quarter, something like that. And so that's what he would always eat. in his
Wow.
Elvis booth. But again, memorabilia, the diner is packed. It's just a little place. It's not real big, but I'll tell you what, the place is packed, waiting in line. And of course, if you want to get in the Elvis booth, good luck with that. But somehow we managed it. I don't even know how we did it, but we managed to get into the Elvis booth, and they literally have a little plaque that said, "This is the booth where Elvis sat." But again, think dive bar only in a diner sense, and that's what you got.
Oh, that's perfect. I love it.
It is nothing fancy. If you're expecting fancy you're not going to get it. But again, it's the experience.
But now there's the Elvis burger that is not the dough burger. From once he did make money.
I'm sure.
And he had, the regular burger with bacon, cheese, bananas.
Yeah, he was big on bananas.
And peanut butter. Now, I'm not big on banana. I eat banana bread, right? But I'm not. And if they put rum and flambe them, but it's really fun, maybe. If you put rum on bananas, I might. But the banana thing, it's just a weird thing. Everybody's like, oh, you need to eat a banana for potassium. Like, no, that's what French fries are for. Sorry. Don't tell my doctor. And that's why vodka's incredible. Anyway, that's a whole other story. But the Elvis burger, I am a massive fan. And I had it for the first time. Ruby Tuesdays. Remember that chain? Well, that chain's still around in the South. Yeah.
I think it is. In certain cities, I think it is.
Yeah. In Florida, God, I think I was like 22 or something. So a long time ago. And everybody's like, why is this? And I'm like, it's an Elvis burger. I have to try it because it's Elvis, And it was like, I think it was his birth week or something. They were doing some special thing.
Oh, probably.
And I was like, and people were like, how could you have peanut butter and pickles? Dude, I'm telling you, it is to this day one of my favorites. I will make toast, peanut butter toast, and put pickles and peanut butter together. It is.
Wow,
I know people do peanut butter and onions, but peanut butter and pickles, and you can put bacon in there. Yes, a little more grease is good, but I am a huge fan of the Elvis burger. It sounds weird. The bananas have to go just because I don't like bananas. So if I did, I'd probably eat it. But the peanut butter and pickle bacon thing, there's the peanut butter and pickle. Yeah. But in South Africa, I think people would eat the onions and peanut butter. I can't remember, but I'm telling you, it's good. It's good for you. You get all your electrolytes, a little bit of protein,
There you go.
I'm just saying. So there's a whole other, I did not know about the dough burger. So this is fascinating. The evolution. Now it gives me now I think maybe he's like, I've graduated from the dough burger. I made the dough. I made the dough now. So now I'm putting everything on my burger because I can. And it's just, when you think about Elvis and his legacy, right, is massive. He's one of the most infamous people in the world. I think people know Elvis more than they know who the Pope is. Well, especially now it's new, but the new Pope is cool because he, comes from Chicago and he knows pizza.
No, I've read a lot. I've read several of the things that he's I like this guy. That's
cool. That's cool. So, it's to me, it's interesting about Elvis being around the world. I remember England, Elvis was big. And I remember everyone saying, Cliff Richard is our answer to Elvis. And Nancy would this is when I was a little girl, and Nancy would have to stop herself from answering because it wouldn't be British polite. No. And I'm going to say exactly true. Hard no. Cliff Richard is not Elvis. I don't know why people thought that this was in the 80s. No, absolutely not. Cliff Richard and Pat Boone belong together. Not Elvis. Okay. I'm going to get in so much trouble. I refuse to put Cliff Richard on your playlist. I don't care. I will never
I don't blame you there. But no, I just, there's not one. There is a lot of very influential performers. There absolutely is, but there will never. Yeah, there will never be another Elvis. I don't think.
Have you ever watched the movie, The Commitments? I really encourage you to watch this. It was in Ireland. It was done in the 90s, early 90s, maybe. Yeah, early 90s. And I read the book and everything too. It's like, and our band that we had in San Diego broke up just like this band, other than our band broke up on stage and the drummer was going to take his drumsticks and shove them up someone's nose and other places to the guitarist. It was fantastic, to the point that the audience thought our band was just it was part of the show. No, we were having an all-out brawl about to happen. But the Commitments was about a band in Ireland, and they wanted to be like Wilson Pickett. They were listening to Wilson Pickett, Otis Redding, everything. And Elvis was part of that. And I remember them trying to do, it was a scene in the movie, and they were playing something, and this Irish guy comes out and goes, "Oh, everything since Elvis is God and everything after Elvis is shite." And that this whole thing, I mean, it's like, you have to watch that movie, Lisa. You must.
Yeah.
It is. I'm telling you, you will love this movie. But Elvis is God, and that's how people is not replacing God, obviously. But it's like,
Right.
you remember when John Lennon said they were more popular than Jesus, right? So I think we're doing a lot of musicians and religion now. But I don't mean to offend anyone. That's not the point. But it's like, when people are that famous.
Yes.
Globally, that is, people know Chuck Berry around the world for sure, but they're going to know Elvis before Chuck Berry. And like, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what it is. It's a simple fact. And same as John Lennon. And, but I think Elvis surpasses John Lennon even. People will know the Beatles now, but they won't know who the individual Beatles are from maybe some of our younger, but they'll know who Elvis is.
Yes,
they should.
I agree. And I think, and I mean, I'm actually, once Lisa Marie passed, which that, kind of bummed me out, but, talk about trouble.
That was devastating.
But I'm encouraged by what I read and what I follow Riley Keough, and I'm encouraged. And if you stop and think about her life, she never knew her grandfather. He was long gone before she was born. But, she's still part of that legacy, and I credit her. I give her lots of kudos for carrying on the legacy for somebody that you had you never met, obviously, who they are. He was your grandfather. And then you've watched the struggles that you've heard about the struggles he had. You watched your mother go through kind of a similar, kind of thing, but you're still stable enough that you want to keep this legacy going. I give her kudos for that. And then she had her daughter and named her Tupelo. So I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, I do too. Now, in closing here, because obviously we, if you mention anything about music to either one of us, because we are Lisa and the Cult Jam here, and we have our own cult. It's called Really Good Music, right? If we were ever to create our own cult, it would be like, here you must listen to this music, and like, we'd like,
and it could be any genre.
Yeah, like Bob Marley. Like, here we go. Yes, please. But going back to Memphis itself, some of the restaurants, I was looking at the arcade restaurant, and I love the signs. It seems like Memphis kept some of its neon history that people may have forgotten about, and maybe Nashville too. I know you're going to do Nashville next month, but which is perfect, right? But it looks like the neon signs. So Memphis has this, it's like an authentic downtown city where it's building history, which I think is commendable in this day and age.
And like I said, the street art is literally and you'll stumble upon it and you'll look and go, damn, that's really good. It's just, like I said, the vibe. I thoroughly enjoyed the vibe of Memphis. I would go back to Memphis in a heartbeat. And the next time I go, and this, I want to go into the deep history that people, not the generalized history that everybody knows about the Civil, the backstories is what I'm that to me would be really interesting.
Now I want to go to the arcade restaurant. That's my I want to go there.
It is.
It's on the registry, so that's a place to go to, and it's just so much film history. I'm into that, and that's an Elvis place. And so looking at your restaurants, the place that really gets me is the Coach House and Laughlin Yard. So those are connected, right? So tell us about that, because the buildings talk about history, right? This is a little different than what people may think.
It is, and it's an outdoor, so it's kind of like you walk in, and there are indoor buildings, but then there's like an outdoor part. That's how do I explain it? So they have a little area that's like a patio covered where you can have events if you want. They have this big open yard, and then you have your buildings. So in inclement weather, you can eat or drink in there, or you can just get your stuff like what I did. placed my order, got my drink, and went out and grabbed a picnic table, because there's picnic tables all out in this area, and they've got the trees, and then they've got the lights streaming through. It's really, and it was in a manufacturing area. It's one of the, how they, I don't know if regenerated is the word, but it's in one of the areas of the city that had a lot of like Milltown thing. Like, so when it started, it was like a little diner place for people that worked in the mills to come and grab a quick lunch. Well, of course, now the manufacturing part of it is kind of not there anymore. So they kind of got, genius idea to come up with this outdoor area that still, did the basic thing where you could serve food, and you bring your dogs. There was so many dogs there, and they have little pegs where, obviously your dog's supposed to be leashed, so you put the leash on, you go get your food, or I think they might have servers on some days, but it's just a real chill place to go. You can sit outside, and the weather was beautiful, and you might have somebody over, strumming on a guitar just because he and his family came, and they're kind of having it's kind of like an outdoor picnic area, but you get your food there. It's hard to describe, but it was really, outdoor space was very nice.
I love that. That's cool.
Yeah.
It just seems like, that Memphis has kept integrity of who
Yep.
it is as a city.
It's very hard.
Yeah. So it's history, it's music, it's really good food, obviously really good music, right? And art.
And it's down to earth. It's very, very
that.
down to earth.
That's the best.
To me, it's not snooty. Like, and again, we'll cover that. Nashville is more, I went to both, and Nashville is more, I don't know, touristy, maybe is the word that I
because
want.
it's become this huge glossy country kind of
Yes.
thing.
Thank you. Glossy.
A little
That's the word.
glossy. And it's not necessarily bad, because everyone wants
Right.
to. Nashville is not what Nashville was when you think about the outlaw musicians back in the day, right? And so, like, if
Yes.
you listen to Hank III, the great grandson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Listen, I am a fan of Hank III, okay? Because his music is just, because he tells all the record companies, that you're not like what, so, and he nails some in certain cities and in one of his songs, and we should put that on the playlist. But because it's like, but Nashville is still Music City. It's still massive. It's still a huge presence. I mean, like, Lucas Nelson just moved there about maybe a year ago. He got a little place there, and because him and his band, like, they went on hiatus, and because he's really come into his own, like his dad, a songwriter, and he does so much. And so, but he's humble, and he doesn't. I think it's about to kind of change, because even where they do the Country Music Awards, right? Used to be, they moved it to Vegas for a while. Think about Elvis in Vegas, right? I think the tribute band thing, which we just did a show where we just went off on that, the tribute band thing started because of everybody becoming these fake Elvises all over the world.
Yeah.
Dress up Elvis, and Vegas, the Vegas chapels with here's a new Elvis coming out, and impersonators, So I think they did something, that trend started from that. But, country music, the Country Music Awards at one point was in Vegas. And then they moved, as far as I heard, to Frisco, Texas. And so it changed a little bit. And it used to be, I think, in Nashville. I don't know, but the old Opry. So Nashville has its old downtowns and stuff. We'll have to talk about this on the show, next month. Yeah. It does have its thing, but then it has this other new side, and it's where are you going to balance the two? And yet you can have a roaring good time in Nashville. You can get into naughty wise.
I definitely like your term glossy, because that's perfect. And where Memphis is more, to me, Memphis is down to earth and more gritty and just more
matte versus the glossy. When you get your photos, do you want them matte?
There you go.
Do you want them glossy? Remember those things?
That's true. But I do. I really, really enjoyed the vibe of Memphis. The people, just the whole atmosphere was I enjoyed it. I have to say.
I think we should go do like a weekend Yeah, we should go do a weekend together, Lisa. We'd get in trouble. I just know that
We would get
when
in trouble.
I think when we actually meet in person, like somebody has to drive something, it's going to be, Nancy's not
Yeah.
any better than us on behaving, probably worse. And
We need to put together a Bahamas cruise and then we don't have to worry about it.
but you're going to have to drag Nancy and I back on the boat. That's the problem.
You wouldn't want to go on you could, you're on the boat because you can party and then you get off and you party and then.
Yeah, but you're going to have to make sure we get back on the boat because we're stupid. We have Bahama Mamas and then we'll get like sucked into some good music somewhere and you will have a hard time. You're going to have to like get a zapper or something. You're going to have to get a taser.
Well, if you got to be back on
but if there's a party on if there's a party on the boat, that's all you have to do is tell us there's a party on the boat.
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
we're moving the party. It's going on the boat.
We follow the Pied Piper if there's music and there's Bahama Mamas. That's all you have to do. It's like a dog with treats, and I should never have said that word. You dangle that and we'll go, Yeah. So. You know that story a couple episodes ago. We talked about that, how we learned how to, drink Bahama Mamas, shake your head upside down and then take another sip. That's why people like, someone to cart us around because we're stupid. But it's fun. But Lisa, we will meet you in person, but I think it's going to be on the Blues Trail in Mississippi. Epic. Yeah, I don't know. Who knows? A cruise, we could do podcasts on a cruise ship now because they all got Starlink, right? So
yeah, and you do, and now you do know that, and I'm sure you've seen these advertised. They do blues cruise, and like
it's dangerous.
I know. One of these, that's on my bucket list to go. Yeah. Joe actually, and we've talked about Joe Bonamassa several times. He actually organizes them. I think they go once a year, and then Larkin Poe, I know, goes on them because I see the advertisements for them. So they actually have a blues cruise.
My friend plays on
at least once a year.
My friend plays on. I just talked to a musician from your neck of the New York woods, central New York area, and he was like, well, my next door neighbor was Joe Bonamassa, and he lived in, his parents had a music club, and that's how he became a guitarist, and he's an incredible guitarist. And that's how he got into music, was bartending in the club in the 70s. I don't know, you probably know him. You never know. Like, I don't know. He was, you might know him. You never know because of the music thing.
But yeah, I'm telling you, that's what we need to do. We need to get a group and just go on one of those blues cruises. Then I think they just cruise around and just play music all the time.
They have a prog rock one too that like Dave Kersner goes on, and then the McBroom sisters Durga McBroom, who does all the backup for Pink Floyd. I mean, they're amazing vocalists, these women, and they go on it. And I mean, it's huge. There's a rock cruise, there's metal cruises, there's just all of these music cruises. We should do a whole show on music cruises. That would be dangerous.
There we go.
But we should be on it. Like, could you imagine being on a blues cruise? Really? Do you know
broadcasting from it?
I would be in. Oh yeah, broadcast. Seriously, I don't even know if I'd be in my element. Like really, you could be listening to some of the best blues and looking out and see dolphins. Like that would be the ultimate, I love
we might have to investigate that maybe in the next couple years and get on one of them.
Well, everyone, you go to writerlisa.com, right? I got it right? writerlisa.com.
Yeah, you did.
Yep. And go there and learn more about her as a travel advisor. She's going back to the Bahamas, so she will report back to us about all these different wonderful resorts you can stay in. I like the all-inclusive that I know you're going to be exploring, which means we can really be naughty once you get there. It's like done. So everyone, check it out. And again, look in the episode notes of today's show for the article about what you're going to eat and do in Memphis from Lisa. And thanks so much, Lisa. It's always so much fun. And when we talk about, and the music playlist is also linked in the episode notes, but we always get into trouble talking music. We could do a 10-hour show and not stop. Seriously. I know that.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
It's a whole thing, but thanks so much, and we can't wait to talk about Nashville. We'll talk about its glossiness.
There you go. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Journey Jukebox with travel writer and author and travel advisor Lisa Evans. Keep up with Lisa at writerlisa.com and follow bigblendradio.com for new episodes every third Tuesday.